All right, y'all ready? Okay. Last week we talked about the importance of accessing spiritual power, right? Becoming the vessel through which the Christ energy could manifest and be expressed. And we talked about how Jesus' disciples were selected and how he gave them the omnific word, and then it took them a year before he actually empowered them, or they actually took the power out and did the healing work themselves. So as he gave them that, then they got to go out at the end of the second year and do the healing work, and then they returned. Y'all remember all of that? Okay. Now they are able to actually be as he is, even though they've been watching him for more than a year, but as disciples for a full year. So this was the spiritual awakening within them. I thought, that was March. I thought that we would spend the entire month of April, the next 3 services, talking about what happened when Jesus walked into Jerusalem in his last week. But that was not what Spirit had in mind. So we are back to the beginning of the year 3, which we know will end in his crucifixion. So at the beginning of year 3, I wanted to share some scriptures with you and let us kind of explore that journey with the disciples and their awareness and people. This is the first book of the first verse, the first thing of year 3. The 12 apostles had reached the stage of spiritual consciousness. Do you know what apostles are? They're to take the message out. You know what a disciple is? Someone who studies and learns the message. So the disciples are now apostles because they have now taken the message out. I thought that was a cool shift. All right. Jesus could reveal to them the deeper meanings of his mission to the world. Now he can. Before he couldn't, even though he's told them everything that's going to happen, but now he can reveal deeper. The next week, there was a great feast of the Jews would be observed, and Matthew said, "Shall we not gird ourselves and go into Jerusalem?" And Jesus said, "We will not go up to the feast. The time is short, and I have many things to say to you. Come you apart into a desert place and rest a while." And then he took all of them to a place where they could rest and meditate. So we see him being willing to teach them the deeper meaning, and then what is the very first thing that he does? Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing the old regime. We're not going to the feast. Whereas every loyal Jew would have gone because you just don't not go. You don't not celebrate. It's ritual. And this is when he says, no, we have bigger things to do and we're going to let the traditions go. So Jesus begins to disconnect from traditions. And so people that had been following might have raised an eyebrow at that. Of course, the disciples went with him willingly. So they do their meditation, and then the multitudes found them. You know, multitudes always found them. And this is immediately. So they are with Jesus listening, and there's no food. And y'all know this story very well. There is no food. They've been following, listening. They're parked, and the food has run out for the multitudes. So Jesus said, "Do we not have food?" And they had no food. And then he said, there was some 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. And Jesus said, "Command the people to sit upon the grass in companies of 12. And they sat down in companies of 12. Jesus took the loaves and fish, and looking to heaven, he spoke the sacred word. He broke the bread, he gave it to the 12, and he gave the fish to the 12. And he said, "Go feed the multitude." And all the people ate and were refreshed. In another example, it talks about how every time he broke a loaf, blessed a loaf and broke it, another one appeared. It was like there was no end. At the end, he said, "Let not one crumb be lost," and there were 12 full baskets that he wanted to give to the people who were in need. So what we see Jesus spiritually teaching, and then we see him actually using the energy to take care of the needs of the people. And is that a little bit opposite of what their understanding of God? God takes care of my needs first, and I learn maybe spiritual second. Because we want God to save us. That's where they were. They wanted to be saved. But he was teaching them, and they were there willingly following. And he fed them. So He had been feeding spiritually, now he fed physically. He was showing them that what he had always said, seek the kingdom of God or the counsel of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Ask for what you want. The Father knows what you want before you even ask. But if you ask, it will not be withheld from you, whatever you need. Follow the spiritual energy and you will be surprised. You will be supplied. This is the basis of our faith, is it not? God is my source and my supply. As I follow the spiritual energy, I don't worry about what I'm going to eat tomorrow. I don't worry about the bills. God and I work it out. God will supply. And it's not that we sit on our hands and do nothing, but we trust and we follow. Right? So, I am all that you will ever need, is what the name of God was. So, we see them doing this, and the people's response was interesting. The people were bewildered at the act of power in the food, and they said, he must be the prophet our prophets said. And they said, hail the king. And when they said, hail the king, Jesus said, okay, we got to go. So he and his disciples got in their boats and they left. And they traveled across the sea and they went to another part of the country. It was not something they were willing to understand. They experienced it. They needed to process it. So when they're teaching in this other country, or other part of the country, a lot of this multitude followed him. And he says to them, why did you come across the sea? And he said, you did not come for the bread of life. You came to gratify yourselves. You were fed the other day across the sea, and you are after more loaves and fishes. You're after more food. You with me? So they'd not come with the same intention that they had in the beginning. They were coming for the physical. This is what he says. The food you ate was nourishment for flesh that soon passes away. You men of Galilee, seek not for food that perishes, but food that feeds your soul. For lo, I bring you food from heaven. You ate of the flesh of fish. I bring you the flesh of Christ for you to eat, that you may live forevermore. Then he says, the Christ has come. He is bread of life that God has given to the world. Whoever eats the flesh of Christ and drinks his blood shall never die, and he will hunger nevermore, and he will thirst no more. And they who eat this bread of heaven and drink these waters from the spring of life cannot be lost. They feed the soul and purify life. For God himself has said, when man has purified himself, I will exalt him to the throne of power. When this was said, can you see the correlation? He is talking to people who came to him for physical bread. And he is saying, the Christ is the bread you need to be seeking. The blood of the Christ is the water you need to be seeking. So he is correlating from their experience, and they're seeking the physical. He is correlating it. Do you understand? And you know what they did? They got very upset. How dare this man say we have to eat his body? I am offended. I am offended. I heard him say he has the bread of life from heaven, but he is a man. This man, we know his family. And Jesus heard them, and he said to them, Christ is everlasting life. He came from heaven. He has the keys to heaven, and no man enters into heaven except he fills himself with Christ. I came in flesh to do the will of God, and this flesh and blood are filled with Christ. So I am the living bread that comes from heaven. And when you eat this flesh and drink this blood, you will have everlasting life. And if you will, you may become the bread of life. So, again, he's speaking to them, he's drawing an analogy, and he's using a parable. The disciples were aggrieved because what he said, many turned away and followed him no more. We cannot deal with this. You know, once you've followed someone and learned from them spiritually and loved them dearly and seen them do miracles, and they say something to you that upsets your Jewish traditions, upsets the ideas of what you feel, instead of saying, what is he really saying? Instead of looking at the conditions, these people wanted physical food. Right. Look at the conditions. He didn't pull this out of thin air. No, I am the food. When you follow me and you listen to me, I am the food. The words I speak are food. They connect you with God. They connect you with the Christ. I'm the food. And in the ancient Aramaic, to eat someone was an idiom. It meant to consume their essence, to take their knowledge. They would say, I ate the book. They would say, Then bread was so precious to them. Bread was from heaven anyway. All of this would have made sense to them if they came from the part of the country he came from, because it was an idiom. Now, Dr. Errico tells us Galilee had different idioms than other parts of Israel, but he was talking to them in dual sense, I believe. But he was talking to them in a way of, I am vibrating the energy of God. Take it, eat it, take it into you. It will satisfy you. You see? But in this moment, a lot of people turned away. And when the disciples said, this is a fearful thing that you've done, you really shouldn't have done that. Jesus said, you stumble and you fall before the truth. This is to his disciples. What will you do when you see this flesh and blood transmuted into a higher form? What will you do when you see the Son of Man ascending on the clouds of heaven? What will you say when you see the Son of Man sit on the throne of God? What are you going to say then if you can't accept these words today? The flesh is nothing. The Spirit is the quickening power, and the words I speak are spirit and life. Jesus saw many who had professed loud in their faith in him, and he saw them turn away, and he said to the 12, will you desert me in this hour and go away as well? And Peter said, Lord, we have no place else to go. You have the words of everlasting life, and we know you are sent to us from God. Jesus was to open one of the greatest challenges, and that was to open the hearts and minds to the value of their spirit and to take them away from material, because it was all about the material. So, the people had followed him for food, and he told them that he was the food. And then he says this, do you not know that God feeds the soul direct from heaven? The bread of life comes from above, and the air we breathe is charged with holy breath. He who wills may take this holy breath. The soul discriminates, and he who wants the life of Christ may breathe it in. According to your faith, let it be. So we can breathe in the vibration of the Christ frequency anytime, anywhere. I wonder if we can breathe it in, especially now because of the gift that Jesus gave to the earth with his energy. But I wanted to take you one step further. All right, so 128. He is now traveling and talking again. So that's just a couple of chapters later. 128. The people, the multitudes, were listening. They brought their sick, and Jesus healed. And the night came on, and people would not go, and they slept on the ground. 3 days and night they remained. And then they had no food. But for 3 days and night they remained, listening. Then Jesus had compassion and said, if I send them away, they'll faint, for they have traveled many miles. Disciples said, where shall we get food? And Jesus said, bring me the fishes and the loaves. He multiplied them, and he fed the 4,000 this time. Now I bring this to you because it is the opposite. The people sat spiritually for 3 days, and they were fed physically. They did not come for the physical feeding. They came for the spiritual feeding. And they sat as long as they could to absorb all they could, and then the energy of God provided. Do you see? This is such an important understanding that even we need today, because we get caught in our own mind of, is God matter or is God spirit? Or, we divide God into these things. You would be surprised. Now, I know I'm talking to the choir here. Choir, I know you guys are all choir. But do you realize a lot of people come to church when things are bad? If they need a job, if they need some money, I have had so many wives bring their husbands to church right before they divorce them. On purpose. Like, here's Cindy, meet my husband, he's really nice. I'm going to leave him in your care because I'm getting ready to leave. And I know what they're doing. Thank you. We'll take care of him. Yeah, because they don't want to leave him unloved. So the husband stays until he gets on his feet, and then off he goes. People come when they're hurting. That's coming for physical, believe it or not. If it's emotional stability, a new job, new thing, new anything, you're coming for your physical world. It's those of you that sit in the chair today, those of you that are sitting here today, sitting out there today, listening to my words, You wouldn't be listening to my words if you want something material, because I don't offer you that. I don't hold a carrot over your nose and say, do this and you'll prosper. You're here because you want a better spiritual relationship with God, a better connection, a better understanding, and you want that spirit. And that is what changes our lives. When we can be in the energy of that spirit, knowing God as parent. And that is what Jesus came to show them. He's showing the multitudes now. He spent all this time trying to teach his disciples. Now he's trying to show the multitudes, guys, pay attention. I am the life. I am the life. I am the life. When we want a relationship with God, we have to live in the kingdom of God, which is, ladies and gentlemen, the counsel of God. Kingdom is counsel. That's what it means. It's the counsel of God. He wasn't opposed to the material support, but he had to show the spiritual support first. Because if you don't have a connection with spirit, how can you bring in the material? God only brings to you what you will open to receive. You have to trust to bring it in. And I wanted to take you to this. We all know what happened his very last evening on the earth, do we not? It was the Last Supper, and he was preparing to leave them. Judas had already left. And he'd already washed their feet. They'd already had the Passover meal. And he was getting ready to talk to them and tell them the very last things, because it was hours before Gethsemane. They were going to go to Gethsemane. He was going to pray. He was going to be arrested. It was time. He said to them, it's not written, but I know his intention was, I need to give you something so you can stay connected to me. I'm leaving. And you need to stay connected with my energy field, because it's going to be hard. And this is when he took the bread, and I'm talking about communion. You guys know the Last Supper, communion? So we do, as a metaphysical Christian church, we do communion once a year on Good Friday. Jesus said, he took a loaf that had not been broken, and he said, the bread is the symbol of the bread of life. This bread is a symbol of the bread of life, which he is the bread of life. And he said, as I break this loaf, my flesh will be broken as a pattern for the sons of men. As you eat this bread, you will eat the bread of life and never die. And he blessed it. When he blessed the bread, do you not think he was imbuing into the frequency of matter the vibration of who he was? And do not think that when they took that into their bodies, they were actually taking in a physical way, the vibration of who he was. And he was saying, take and eat my energy. He was actually using the whole analogy, here's my energy, take it. I need you to stay connected with me. And then he did the same thing with the wine. He took the wine and he blessed it. And he said, this is a symbol of the life of him who gives his life for men. If you drink in faith, you drink the life of Christ. Everybody all mad about he's going to make me drink his blood, and this was it. And he blessed it, and he put the essence of who he is in it, and he let them drink. And then he said, this is the remembrance bread and the remembrance wine. And he said, when you eat this wine and this bread and drink this wine, remember me. And in the KJV, it says, and do it often. Do it often. So, when we, as a metaphysical Christian church, do this, and I'm sharing this with you because it's all about how do we bring our energy, how do we make our connection with God important, so important that it's never separated from our matter. When we do communion, it's always on Good Friday. We have a silent meditation for anyone to join, walk in or walk out, until from 11 to 12. And at 12 o'clock, we start our service, and we'll do some words, and then we'll do the blessing, and we'll all do communion together. And then we do a meditation, which you're free to leave whenever you're ready to go. I'm telling you, from 11 on, you can walk in, and this place is full of masters. It's full of angels. It's full of beings of love and light that are just holding us, loving us. Jesus Christ is here. You can feel his love, his presence with us. And it isn't only when we do the communion and take it in that we're taking it in. It's when we put our butts in the chair and we say, yeah, I'm here. I am here. I want your spirit. I want your spirit. I want to stay connected. This is an archaic tradition, but it is a tradition. In it has been hidden a secret to take in the vibration of the Christ. And we struggle with that sometimes, don't we? We struggle feeling it in our own body. We struggle even though we meditate. Sometimes we don't get very high. But he left us with this pattern. The I am is all around you. Breathe it in. If you bless this bread, and we use water, if you bless this bread and bless this water with my essence, and I teach my seminary students how to do that, the ministers, and there's literally an energy that moves through your hands into the substance when you're blessing it. We do it in the back before we bring it out. Then we re-bless it when it's out here. Literally, you can feel it moving through you. When we bring that in, we are bringing in an essence of spirit that becomes so real to this world of matter. And it becomes a part of us. When we love God in energy, energy flows through matter. When we can take the energy of the Christ into us, the gift that he left us with, that was only one, but it gives us a connection. It helps us on every level. All right. He used the idea symbolically to explain spirit, and he used the idea physically to connect spirit to matter. He used the idea to the multitude symbolically to explain spirit. Spirit provides. But he used it physically to connect us to matter, to the Christ in the vehicle. All right. When we do communion, the house fills with that beautiful vibration and we are engulfed. We are connecting because we have said yes to our Christ within. That is what's being quickened. That inner Christ, that part within us that is vibrating strongly and amazingly, that is what's quickened. You all with me? So, if we could, and this is, they wanted me to share this because if we can really get to the point where we can really know God is my source and we go to prayer first, we go to meditation first, we go to following guidance first, and expect the bread, and expect the manna, and expect the matter, we are working with God in this kingdom. If we go to God first and say, God, I need matter, I need matter, I need matter, I need matter, you know God says, sweetheart, as soon as you're able to receive it, you'll get it. Go work on yourself. You have blocks. You can't bring it in. Clear yourself. Then I'll give it for you. That is not being withheld from you. You just can't bring it in yet. Do you see the difference? So, allowing our hearts to open, allowing our hearts to let the bridge of communion be strong every day. Every day. Checking in every day. Meditating every day. Expecting every day. If I'm showing up and I'm listening, yeah, I'm going to expect food. Yeah, I'm going to expect it. I'm going to expect to be fed. I'm going to expect it. Because that's how Jesus taught us to walk. Well, I hope that was a blessing. And I know for many of us that's kind of heavy, but the reality is you're on planet Earth. This is a fabulous experience, and it should be filled with joy, but it's very difficult to navigate without your Creator. Very difficult to navigate. All right, let's go within. Father, Mother God, we love you so. And I ask that you flood this space and all who hear my words with your presence and peace. And I would invite you just to begin to feel the energy around you. Begin to feel that you are cared for and you are one with God. And just see a beautiful now column of light come over you, an inner column of your own color, your own vibration. And as it begins to allow you to focus on your heart, feel your uniqueness. You may begin to remember when you first were born, what you were going to do when you came, your excitement to be born on this planet. That may flash through your mind. You may begin to remember all the beautiful times that your heart opened in such pure love. You are unique. And you came with a beautiful divine mission from Creator. Breathe it in. See a beautiful light coming in through the top of your head, just moving through your body. I choose to remember. And feel that love of Jesus Christ with you. Feel Him take your hand, touch your heart. My beloved brother, my beloved sister. We walk together. And now, feel this beautiful encouragement coming from Jesus Christ to you. Go do what you came to do. Go be you. Go be the light. Go love God in your unique way. You are always connected and one with us. Take it in. Let all the walls of tradition and expectation melt. I am spirit, and spirit creates matter. And I thank you, God. And just send your love to Father, Mother, God, to Jesus Christ. Feel the love in your beautiful calm of light. Let your focus come to the chair. And just know your divinity. And take a breath. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Well, that was from Spirit, y'all. And I know it's for you because you're here. And this will help us walk as we're moving toward our Easter celebration in 2 weeks. Say, yay, God. Yeah.